There's a silent epidemic sweeping across lives, quieter than any disease, yet just as debilitating. It's the condition of waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for inspiration to strike like lightning. Waiting for permission from gatekeepers, real or imagined. Waiting for circumstances to align perfectly for the stars to grant their celestial approval. Waiting for someone else to make the first move to pave the way, to hand over the opportunity. We wait for someday. We wait for the fear to subside. We wait for certainty in an uncertain world. We stand on the platform watching train after train of possibility rush past, convinced that our train, the perfect risk-free guaranteed success train, just hasn't arrived yet. And so we wait. We consume. We scroll. We spectate. We critique the players on the field, all while remaining firmly on the sidelines of our own lives. This state of passive expectation, this endless postponement of action, feels safe. It feels prudent, but it's a trap. It's the comfortable cage of inaction, where potential slowly suffocates, where dreams fade from vibrant technicolor to dusty grayscale. The future we desire, the life brimming with purpose, achievement, and meaning. It isn't found in the waiting room. It doesn't magically appear when external conditions finally reach some mythical state of perfection. That future isn't something you find. It's something you forge. It's not discovered. It's created. The power to shape your destiny doesn't lie in patience for the ideal circumstance. It lies in the courage to command your present actions, to stop waiting and start creating right here, right now, with whatever tools you have at hand. Why do we fall into this waiting game trap? Fear is a powerful sedative. The fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of the unknown. Starting something new, putting yourself out there, committing to a course of action. It's inherently risky. You might fail. You might be criticized. Things might not go according to plan. Waiting feels like avoiding that potential pain. By not starting, you can't fail. By staying silent, you avoid critique by delaying you. Maintain the illusion of control in a perfectly predictable and perfectly stagnant present. But this perceived safety is an illusion. The real risk isn't in trying and failing. It's in never trying at all. It's the slow, certain erosion of potential. The accumulation of regret that haunts the later years with the ghosts of what-ifs. We wait for clarity, telling ourselves we can't start until we have the perfect plan. Every step mapped out. We fall prey to analysis paralysis, endlessly researching, planning, strategizing, seeking more information, convinced that just one more piece of data will unlock the secret to guaranteed success. But clarity rarely arrives in a vacuum of thought. It emerges through action. You discover the path by walking it, not by staring at the map indefinitely. The Wright brothers didn't achieve flight by perfecting theoretical models alone. They built, tested, crashed, learned, and rebuilt. Action generates feedback. Feedback informs. Iteration. And iteration leads to progress. Waiting for perfect clarity before starting is like waiting for the ocean to be still before learning to swim. We are also subtly conditioned towards passivity. From childhood, we often wait for instructions, for approval, for external validation. We learn to follow paths laid out by others rather than blazing our own trails. Society often celebrates conformity and caution over bold initiative. This conditioning can create a deep-seated inertia, a psychological barrier to taking the reins and actively shaping our own direction. We forget that we possess agency, the inherent power to choose to act, to influence our course. The cost of this prolonged waiting is immense. Opportunities evaporate, time, our most precious and finite resource, slips away irretrievably. Our skills atrophy from disuse. Our confidence dwindles as the gap between our aspirations and our reality widens. The frustration of stagnation builds, sometimes manifesting as cynicism, resentment, or a quiet sense of despair. Waiting isn't just a passive state. It's an active choice that carries a heavy price tag paid in the currency of unfulfilled potential and lost time. But there is another way, a path fueled not by passive hope, but by active creation. Imagine yourself not as a passenger waiting for life's circumstances to ferry you to a predetermined destination, but as the captain, the architect, the sculptor of your own experience. This is the essence of creation. It's not limited to artists painting canvases or musicians composing symphonies. Creation in its broadest and most powerful sense is the act of bringing something into existence through deliberate effort and intention. You can create a business from a simple idea. You can create a solution to a problem that vexes your community. You can create a strong, healthy body through consistent effort. You can create deeper relationships through intentional connection. You can create opportunities where none seem to exist. You are at your core a creator. You possess the innate ability to transform thought into reality, to shape raw potential into tangible outcomes. This shift from waiting to creating is the fundamental pivot point towards a commanded future. It's the moment you reclaim your agency. It's the declaration that you are no longer content to merely react to the world. You are choosing to act upon it. Think of the pioneers, the innovators, the builders throughout history. Henry Ford didn't wait for the transportation system to evolve. He created a new one driven by a vision of accessible automobiles for the masses. He faced skepticism, technical hurdles, and financial risks. But his drive to create, to build, to bring his vision into reality overruled the temptation to wait for a clearer path or wider acceptance. Steve Jobs didn't wait for the market to demand products like the Macintosh or the iPhone. He and his team created them driven by a passion for innovation and a belief they could shape the future of technology. They embraced the creative impulse, the desire to make something new, something different, something impactful. This creative power isn't reserved for historical icons or tech geniuses. It resides within you. It's the spark that ignites when you decide to write the first sentence, make the first sales call, draft the first proposal, take the first step towards a healthier lifestyle, initiate the difficult conversation. It's the assertion of your will against the forces of entropy and inertia. Choosing creation over waiting is choosing responsibility. It means acknowledging that while you don't control every external event, you do control your response, your effort, your attitude, and your actions. It means taking ownership of your results or lack thereof. This responsibility isn't a burden. It's the source of your power. When you embrace responsibility for creating your desired outcomes, you unlock the door to commanding your future. You move from being a piece on the chessboard to being the player who decides the moves. The greatest barrier to creation often is simply starting, overcoming inertia. That tendency for things at rest to stay at rest requires a deliberate conscious application of force. Taking that first step, making that initial move can feel disproportionately difficult. The mind conjures 1,000 reasons why now isn't the right time, why you're not ready, why it's better to wait just a little longer. This initial resistance is the threshold where most creative impulses die. People have brilliant ideas, noble intentions, ambitious dreams, but they stumble at the starting line paralyzed by the perceived enormity of the task or the fear of that first irreversible commitment. But here lies a secret known to all creators, all builders, all commanders of their own destiny. The first step holds disproportionate power. It breaks the spell of inaction. It pierces the veil of procrastination. It generates momentum, however small. As Dale Carnegie emphasized, action alleviates fear. Taking one concrete step, no matter how minor, shifts your focus from anxious contemplation to practical engagement. It moves the goal from the realm of abstract desire into the realm of tangible progress. Think of Newton's first law of motion. An object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion. The hardest part is overcoming the initial state of rest. Once you're moving even slowly, it requires less energy to keep moving. Don't wait for a giant leap. Focus on the smallest viable action you can take today. What's one phone call you can make? One paragraph you can write? 1 hour you can dedicate? One connection you can reach out to? Break down the intimidating vision into its component parts and tackle the very first one. This isn't about diminishing the scale of your ambition. It's about making the starting point accessible. The journey of 1,000 miles begins always with that single step. That first step isn't just about the physical action, it's a psychological victory. It's proof to yourself that you can start, that you can overcome inertia. It builds a tiny kernel of self-belief that fuels the next step, and the next momentum is built incrementally. Confidence grows through competence, and competence grows through action. Stop strategizing the entire staircase. Just focus on climbing the first step. The view and the path forward often becomes clearer once you're no longer standing at the bottom, looking up. Make the commitment. Take the plunge, initiate. The power unleashed by simply beginning is immense. It's the catalyst that transforms passive waiting into active creation. We often feel like leaves tossed by the winds of fate, subject to the whims of circumstance, the economy, the actions of others. It's easy to adopt a narrative of victimhood, believing that our potential is limited by forces beyond our control. If only I had more money, we say. If only I had the right connections. If only the timing were better. This mindset, while understandable, is profoundly disempowering. It absolves us of responsibility and locks us into a reactive posture, waiting for external conditions to magically improve before we can act. But the truth is, while we cannot control every variable in our lives, we possess far more power to influence our circumstances than we typically acknowledge. We are not merely subject to our circumstances. We can become the architects of them. This begins with a radical acceptance of responsibility, a core tenet echoed in Carnegie's work. The understanding that our attitude, our choices, and our actions are the primary determinants of our experience. Yes, external events happen. Challenges arise. Unforeseen difficulties occur. But the power lies in our response. Do we let setbacks define us, using them as excuses to retreat into waiting? Or do we view them as feedback, as challenges to overcome, as opportunities to adapt and innovate? Do we focus on what we lack, or do we leverage the resources we do possess? Those who command their future understand this distinction. They cultivate a proactive mindset. They don't wait for opportunities. They create them. They don't complain about problems. They devise solutions. They don't blame circumstances. They focus on their circle of influence, the things they can change through their own initiative and effort. Think about someone starting a business with minimal capital. The reactive mindset sees only lack of funding, lack of staff, lack of market presence. This leads to waiting, perhaps indefinitely, for investment or a lucky break. The proactive architectural mindset asks different questions. How can I generate initial revenue with what I have? What free or low-cost resources can I leverage? Who can I partner with? What unique value can I offer right now? This mindset shifts the focus from external limitations to internal resourcefulness. It leads to action, experimentation, and learning. Over time, these proactive choices, these small acts of creation and problem-solving, begin to reshape circumstances. A tiny venture gains traction. Connections are built through outreach. Skills are developed through practice. Resources accumulate as a result of value created. The individual isn't just reacting to their environment. They are actively shaping it, brick by brick, decision by decision. Commanding your future requires consciously shedding the victim narrative and embracing the role of the architect. It means meticulously examining your thoughts, your language, and your habitual responses. Do you speak in terms of limitations or possibilities? Do you focus on roadblocks or detours? Do you wait for permission or grant it to yourself? Every choice, every action taken from a place of responsibility and proactivity lays another foundation stone for the future you wish to build. Circumstances are not fixed entities. They are dynamic conditions influenced by our participation. By stopping the wait and starting the creation by choosing action over apathy, you cease being a passive observer of your life story and become its active author, deliberately shaping the chapters yet to come. You become the architect of your own experience, designing and building a future aligned with your vision, regardless of the initial plot of land you were given. Of course, you cannot build anything substantial without a plan, a vision. Trying to create your future without a clear sense of what you want to build is like a construction crew showing up to an empty lot with tools, but no blueprints. They can be busy, they can expend energy, but the result will likely be chaotic, inefficient, and far from the desired outcome. Waiting often persists because the alternative, creation, feels too vague, too undefined. Start creating sounds motivating, but creating what this is, where the power of vision comes in. Vision provides the blueprint for your creation. It's the clear, compelling picture of the future state you are striving to bring into reality. It transforms abstract desire into a concrete objective. Defining your vision isn't a mystical process. It's an act of deliberate imagination and clarification. What does the future you want to command actually look like? Be specific. If it's a career change, what industry, what role, what kind of impact do you want to make? What skills do you need to develop? What does a typical day look like? If it's a personal goal, like improved health, what does that mean in tangible terms? Energy levels, physical capabilities, daily habits. If it's a creative project, what is the message, the medium, the intended audience? The more detailed and vivid your vision, the more powerful it becomes as a guiding force. It provides direction for your actions, helping you prioritize tasks and make decisions aligned with your ultimate goal. It fuels motivation during challenging times, reminding you why you embarked on this creative journey in the first place. This vision isn't just about external achievements. It's also about the person you need to become to create that future. What qualities, habits, and mindsets do you need to cultivate? Honesty, discipline, resilience, courage. Connecting your vision to your core values and sense of purpose adds another layer of power. When your creation is aligned with what truly matters to you, the drive to bring it into existence becomes intrinsically motivated, less dependent on external rewards or validation. Clarity of vision acts as a filter for opportunities and distractions. When you know precisely what you are building, it becomes easier to say no to things that, while potentially interesting, do not serve your primary objective. It helps you focus your limited time and energy on the activities that yield the most significant progress towards your defined future. Take the time to articulate your vision. Write it down. Visualize it. Share it with trusted allies. Refine it as you learn and grow, but always maintain that core picture of what you are working towards. This blueprint doesn't need to be rigid or unchangeable. Adaptability is key, but it must be clear enough to provide direction and purpose. Without it, your creative energy risks being scattered, dissipated on unrelated tasks, leaving you feeling busy, but not productive, active, but not truly progressing towards a commanded future. The clearer your vision, the more focused your actions. The more focused your actions, the more effectively you can translate the waiting impulse into the powerful directed energy of creation. Let your vision be the lighthouse guiding your ship through the fog of uncertainty, illuminating the path towards the future you choose to build. A compelling vision is the destination, but reaching it requires more than just knowing where you're going. You need the vehicle to get there. In the journey of creation, the indispensable vehicles are discipline and focus. Ideas are sparks. Vision is the map, but discipline is the engine that drives progress. And focus is the steering wheel that keeps you on course. Without them, even the most brilliant blueprint remains just a drawing, the most inspiring destination forever out of reach. We've touched on discipline before, that commitment to consistent action, especially when motivation wanes. In the context of creation, discipline means showing up to do the work day in and day out, even when inspiration feels distant, even when progress feels slow, even when the initial excitement has inevitably faded. Creating something new, whether it's a business, a skill, or a piece of art, is rarely a linear process filled with constant breakthroughs. It involves long stretches of deliberate practice, meticulous execution, problem solving, and often sheer monotonous effort. It's the writer facing the blank page every morning. It's the entrepreneur making the 100th sales call after 99 rejections. It's the athlete adhering to a grueling training regimen. Discipline is the bridge between your vision and its actualization. It's the understanding that creation is less about waiting for moments of genius and more about accumulating hours of dedicated effort. It's about building habits that support your creative goals, scheduling time for focused work, and honoring those commitments as you would any important appointment. Focus, the twin sibling of discipline, is the ability to direct your attention exclusively to the task at hand, resisting the siren song of distractions that constantly vies for your mental energy. In our hyper-connected, notification-driven world, focus has become a superpower. The ability to concentrate deeply, to immerse yourself in the creative process, without constantly switching contexts or succumbing to digital temptations, is crucial for producing meaningful work. Waiting can sometimes be a disguised form of distraction. We tell ourselves we're waiting for the right time, but often we're simply avoiding the deep focus required to start creating. True creation demands presence, attention, and the willingness to shut out the noise. Cultivating focus requires conscious effort. It means designing your environment to minimize interruptions. It means practicing single tasking, instead of succumbing to the myth of effective multitasking. It means training your attention like a muscle, perhaps through mindfulness practices or time-blocking techniques, like the Pomodoro method. It means being intentional about where you direct your mental energy, recognizing that attention is a finite resource. When discipline ensures you show up for the work, focus ensures that the time you spend working is effective and productive. Together, they form the bedrock of execution. Without them, the gap between intention and creation widens, leading to frustration and the temptation to abandon the project altogether. To slip back into the passive state of waiting, command your future by commanding your attention and your actions. Build the engine of discipline, grasp the steering wheel of focus, and drive steadily towards the destination defined by your vision. These are not glamorous tools, but they are the essential non-negotiable instruments for transforming dreams into reality. One of the most potent fuels for the waiting game is the paralyzing fear of imperfection. We hold back from starting, from sharing, from launching because the creation isn't perfect yet. We envision a flawless final product, and anything less feels like failure, like exposing our inadequacy to the world. So we tweak, we polish, we refine endlessly, waiting for that mythical moment when the work is absolutely beyond reproach. Or worse, we never even start, convinced that we lack the innate talent or skill to produce something worthy, something perfect. This pursuit of perfection is a gilded cage. It masquerades as high standards, but often serves as an elaborate defense mechanism against vulnerability, criticism, and the perceived shame of falling short. It keeps us trapped in perpetual preparation mode, forever waiting, never creating. The truth is, creation is inherently messy. It's an iterative process, not a single leap to flawlessness. Think of a sculptor starting with a raw block of stone. The initial cuts are rough. Experimental shapes emerge gradually. Mistakes are made. Lines are redrawn. Pieces are chipped away and refined. The final masterpiece doesn't spring forth fully formed. It evolves through cycles of action, feedback, and adjustment. Waiting for perfection before you begin is like demanding the statue exist before the first chisel strike. Similarly, writers produce rough first drafts filled with awkward phrasing and plot holes. Entrepreneurs launch minimum viable products to test ideas and gather feedback. Scientists conduct experiments that often yield unexpected or failed results, each providing valuable data for the next iteration. Embracing imperfection is fundamental to the creative process. It means giving yourself permission to start messy, to produce work that is good enough to begin with, knowing that refinement comes later. It means understanding that mistakes are not signs of failure, but essential data points for learning and growth. It requires separating your self-worth from the polish of your output. Especially in the early stages, Dale Carnegie's principles often centered on confident action, not waiting for absolute certainty or perfection, but stepping forward, engaging learning through doing. Applying this to creation means having the courage to ship your work, to put it out into the world, whether that means launching the website, sending the manuscript, making the presentation, or sharing the idea. This act of releasing your creation, even in an imperfect state, is crucial. It generates feedback, creates accountability, and breaks the paralysis of endless refinement. It allows the work to take on a life of its own, to interact with the world and evolve based on real-world input, not just your internal critique. Shift your goal from perfection to progress. Aim for completion, not flawlessness. Celebrate the courage it takes to put something new into the world regardless of its initial reception. Learn to view criticism not as a personal attack, but as potentially valuable information, while also developing the discernment to filter out unproductive negativity. When you release the burden of perfectionism, you liberate enormous amounts of creative energy. You replace the anxiety of judgment with the excitement of experimentation and learning. You move from the stagnant pond of waiting into the flowing river of creation, embracing the bumps, the rapids, and the evolving landscape along the way. Stop waiting for perfect start. Creating, iterate, learn, improve. That is the path to commanding your future, one imperfect but courageous step at a time.